For centuries, a shadow of fear loomed over Europe and America, casting a dark pall over both continents. This fear, deeply rooted in beliefs about witchcraft and the supernatural, led to the persecution of countless individuals. These individuals were often accused of consorting with the devil, a charge that carried severe consequences. The belief in witches was widespread and pervasive, permeating all levels of society. From the poorest villages to the highest courts, no one was immune to the hysteria that surrounded witchcraft accusations. Women, in particular, were targeted and often seen as more susceptible to the devil's influence. This vulnerability made them easy targets for accusations and subsequent persecution. This essay will delve into the dark history of witch punishments, exploring the brutal methods used, the motivations behind these actions, and their lasting impact on society. We will uncover the grim reality faced by those accused. The historical period known as the Early Modern Period, spanning from the 14th to the 18th centuries, saw a dramatic rise in witch hunts. These hunts were not isolated events but widespread phenomena that affected many regions. Fueled by religious fervor, social anxieties, and a lack of scientific understanding, these hunts gripped communities across Europe and later, the American colonies. The fear of the unknown and the need for a scapegoat drove these communities to extreme measures. This era witnessed the development of elaborate legal frameworks and theological doctrines dedicated to identifying and punishing those suspected of witchcraft. These frameworks were often based on superstition and fear rather than evidence, leading to tragic consequences for many. Identifying a witch was a process often shrouded in superstition and fueled by personal vendettas. In many cases, the mere suspicion of witchcraft was enough to ruin lives and tear communities apart. The fear of the unknown and the need to find a scapegoat for unexplained events often led to tragic consequences. Accusations could stem from a variety of sources, from misfortunes like crop failures or illness to personal disputes and rivalries. A bad harvest or an outbreak of disease could quickly turn neighbors into enemies, as people sought someone to blame for their hardships. Personal grudges and envy also played a significant role in these accusations. Rumors, gossip, and fear-mongering played significant roles in shaping public opinion and directing suspicion towards individuals, particularly women living on the fringes of society. These women, often marginalized and living alone, became easy targets for accusations. The spread of fear and misinformation only served to heighten the hysteria. Once accused, the accused often faced a difficult battle to prove their innocence. The trials were heavily biased, and the methods used to determine guilt were cruel and inhumane. The accused were often presumed guilty from the start, making it nearly impossible to escape punishment. Methods of identifying witches included searching for devil's marks on the body, which were believed to be insensitive to pain. These marks, often natural blemishes or scars, were seen as proof of a pact with the devil. The examination process was invasive and humiliating, further dehumanizing the accused. The swimming test, where the accused was bound and thrown into water, was another common method. If the accused floated, it was seen as evidence of witchcraft, while sinking, though often resulting in death, was considered proof of innocence. This test was not only dangerous, but also deeply flawed in its logic. Floating was seen as evidence of witchcraft, while sinking, though often resulting in death, was considered proof of innocence. The accused were placed in a no-win situation, where survival meant guilt and death meant innocence. This cruel paradox highlighted the irrationality of the witch hunts. These tests, lacking any scientific basis, often led to predetermined outcomes, further fueling the cycle of fear and persecution. The witch hunts were a dark chapter in history, driven by ignorance and fear, and they serve as a reminder of the dangers of superstition and the importance of reason and justice. The punishments inflicted upon those found guilty of witchcraft were brutal and varied across Europe. In England, witchcraft was considered a felony punishable by death, typically by hanging. Continental Europe saw more gruesome methods employed, such as burning at the stake, which was believed to purify the soul and prevent the witch's spirit from returning to haunt the community. Torture was frequently used to extract confessions from the accused, with methods ranging from sleep deprivation and starvation to the use of thumbscrews and the rack. These brutal methods often led to false confessions, as individuals, desperate to end their suffering, would admit to anything. The use of torture highlights the cruelty inherent in the witch hunts and the lengths to which authorities would go to secure convictions. The fear of witchcraft crossed the Atlantic with European colonists taking root in the New World. While witch hunts occurred in various colonies, the Salem witch trials in Massachusetts stand out as a chilling example of the hysteria that could grip a community. Beginning in 1692, a group of young girls began experiencing fits and hallucinations, accusing several women in Salem Village of witchcraft. The accusations quickly spiraled out of control, fueled by religious extremism, personal vendettas, and the prevailing belief in the supernatural. Over 200 people were accused of witchcraft, and 20 were executed, primarily by hanging. The Salem witch trials serve as a stark reminder of the dangers of mass hysteria and the devastating consequences of unchecked accusations. Section 5. The Salem Witch Trials, a case study in fear. The Salem witch trials remain a chilling example of how fear, religious extremism, and social anxieties can converge to create a climate of mass hysteria. In 1692, the small Puritan settlement of Salem, Massachusetts, became the epicenter of one of the most infamous witch hunts in history. The trials were fueled by a combination of superstition, fear of the unknown, and a rigid religious framework that left little room for dissent or skepticism. The trials began with a group of young girls exhibiting strange behavior, claiming to be afflicted by witchcraft. These girls, whose actions were likely influenced by a variety of social and psychological factors, became the catalysts for the ensuing chaos. Their dramatic fits and accusations quickly captured the attention of the entire community. Their accusations, initially targeting marginalized women on the fringes of society, quickly escalated, ensnaring more prominent members of the community. As fear spread, neighbor turned against neighbor, and the once tight-knit community was torn apart by suspicion and paranoia. The trials were presided over by local magistrates with little legal training and heavily influenced by the prevailing Puritan beliefs of the time. These judges, driven by a desire to root out evil, often relied on dubious evidence and coerced confessions to secure convictions. Spectral evidence based on dreams and visions was admissible in court, further blurring the lines between reality and the supernatural. This type of evidence, which would be considered highly unreliable today, played a crucial role in many of the convictions. The accused had few opportunities to defend themselves, and those who maintained their innocence faced imprisonment, torture, or even death. The harsh conditions and brutal methods used to extract confessions only added to the atmosphere of fear and desperation. The Salem witch trials serve as a stark reminder of the dangers of allowing fear and superstition to override reason and justice. Section 6. The Roots of Fear, Societal Beliefs and Anxieties. To understand the witch hunts, it's essential to examine the societal beliefs and anxieties that fueled them. The early modern period was a time of significant upheaval and change, marked by religious conflict, disease outbreaks, and economic instability. In this climate of uncertainty, people sought explanations for misfortune and hardship, often attributing them to supernatural forces. Witchcraft, seen as a potent force of evil, provided a convenient scapegoat for these anxieties. Women, often marginalized and lacking power within patriarchal societies, became easy targets for accusations. Midwives, healers, and women who lived independently were particularly vulnerable, their knowledge and skills often misconstrued as evidence of witchcraft. Section 7. The Human Cost Impact on Individuals and Communities. The witch hunts, driven by fear, ignorance, and persecution, had a devastating impact on individuals and communities across Europe and America. Countless innocent men, women, and even children were accused, imprisoned, tortured, and executed based on flimsy evidence and superstitious beliefs. The trials tore apart families and communities, leaving a legacy of trauma and mistrust in their wake. Beyond the immediate victims, the witch hunts cast a long shadow over society. They created a climate of fear and suspicion where neighbors turned against neighbors, and accusations could have deadly consequences. The trials also stifled intellectual curiosity and innovation, as individuals were hesitant to express dissenting views or challenge prevailing beliefs for fear of being branded as heretics or witches. Section 8. Shifting Perspectives, the Decline of Witch Hunts. By the late 17th century, the fervor of the witch hunts began to wane. Several factors contributed to this decline, including the rise of the Enlightenment, a philosophical movement emphasizing reason and scientific inquiry. As scientific understanding advanced, skepticism towards superstition and supernatural explanations grew. Legal reforms also played a role, as courts began to demand more substantial evidence for convictions. The Salem witch trials, with their excesses and injustices, served as a turning point. Many began to question the validity of the accusations and the methods used to obtain confessions. While beliefs in witchcraft persisted in some quarters, the institutionalized persecution of witches gradually declined, replaced by a more rational and humane approach to understanding the world. Section 9. Conclusion: Legacies of a Dark Chapter. The witch hunts represent a dark chapter in human history, a chilling reminder of the dangers of mass hysteria, unchecked power, and the persecution of the innocent. While the era of witch trials has long passed, the lessons learned from this period remain relevant today. We must be vigilant in challenging prejudice, promoting critical thinking, and ensuring that justice is based on evidence, not fear or superstition. The legacy of the witch hunts lives on in literature, art, and popular culture, reminding us of the fragility of reason and the enduring power of fear. By remembering the victims and understanding the historical context that allowed such atrocities to occur, we can strive to create a more just and compassionate world, free from the shadow of persecution.